8 to 8. We are here at 2929 Highway 29 here in St. Helena, right in the middle of Napa Valley. So this is a little St. Helena map here, a Venice map, and the town of St. Helena right here. And as you drive north, you go past Behringer through that tree tunnel, and we are right up here. So just on the west side of the highway, Vineyard 29. These are all our blocks with the white and the gray. And you can drive a little less than 2 miles north to the top of the St. Helena appellation, and you see our Aida Estate Vineyard. So we have the 29 Estate Vineyard down here, and less than 2 miles north, the Aida Estate Vineyard. So those are our two estate vineyards. We're going to talk about one of our wines that is an estate wine, and we're also going to talk about our Cru wine, which is a blend of vineyards that I get to work with throughout the valley. Cru is it's a blend of outsourced fruit that we get to control the farming on, but not necessarily vineyards that we own. So long-term contracts, great relationships with farming companies, with vineyard owners from around the valley. So the Cru portfolio will focus on that as well, both 2017 wines. But I thought we would start by telling you a little bit about Vineyard 29. I know some of you have been here, and thank you for that. And I know some of you haven't, so excuse me if I'm redundant. But we'll tell you a little bit about the winery, do a quick little virtual tour, maybe check out a block, vineyard block, and go see what the team's doing in the cellar. But I want to start out by offering my condolences to those who are impacted by the coronavirus, and I wish you and your loved ones all the best during these difficult times. Also want to thank our frontline people that are just doing all this work for us and really putting in the sacrifices, putting in the time to get us through these difficult times. So let's take a quick walk. We'll dive right in. I know I don't have a lot of your time. So let's go check out a young Cabernet block. So I mentioned we've got our two estate, our Aida estate and our 29 estate, our two estate portfolios, our two estate cabs. We also make a wine that is a new addition to the lineup, and it's called Sienda. And so while we have our 29 estate cab and our Aida estate cab, we also have the Cru cab, as I mentioned. We wanted to come up with something that was sort of right in the middle. It kind of hits that price point, that sweet spot right in the middle. And what it is it's a blend of blocks from the 29 estate here and the Aida estate that don't quite make it into the estate Cabernet program. Those are very small blends, you know, they're not a lot of barrels. So if there's a block at Aida that maybe 6 or 7 of the 9 barrels make the Aida estate cab, those 2 or 3 barrels that don't, you know, there's an opportunity to work with those and try to get them into the Sienda level. And so it's a fun blend for me to work on and my team. We get to use a little bit of Cabernet Franc, a little bit of Petit Verdot from our estates. So we're going to check out one of those blocks that is a younger vine block. DeMarcus, watch your step as we go down.
All right.
You guys get to look at the back of my bald head. All right, so this is block 8. It's a young vine block here at Vineyard 29. We went through all the permitting process and finally planted this about 4 years ago. So we've only gotten fruit off it a couple times, but I thought it'd be fun to take you down here just to see what a young vine, a young aspiring block looks like. And so the shoots are shorter, the trunks are a little bit skinnier than our mature vines. You know, if you just go down a few hundred yards, you'll hit our planted in 1989 Grace family clone Cabernet Sauvignon down there closer to the highway. So those trunks are obviously much thicker, and those wines are amazing. I mean, the concentration level, the purity of the fruit is amazing. But these are aspiring vines. Eventually these trunks will get, 4 times that diameter. Right now we're using a double drip poly line where we can irrigate, we can kind of single out different vines, and really kind of, as these babies grow up, we want to make sure that the more vigorous vines don't get as much water as the other vines. The vines that are struggling get twice as much water, things like that. So we have all these little irrigation techniques we can use. But I wanted to show you this block because it's flowering. Look at it. Look at these right in the middle of flowering. That's 100% flowering. Excuse me if I start sneezing. But as these things get pollinated, they're going to basically, the flowers, the caps will fall off. The flowers will then yield a little berry and a little seed, and then the skin that grows around that seed is basically trying to protect that seed, and then it grows, and obviously the pulp in the middle, and there you go. There's fruit set. So we're not too far away from set, and the weather here over the next several days is important as we're in mid-flowering. If we get a lot of rain, which actually we're supposed to get a tiny bit of rain this weekend, or we get a lot of wind, or this heat is too extreme, then we can have some issues with fruit set. So a very important time of the year. These vines, you can see the shoot tips here, they're still growing, but they're slowing down. There's not a lot of space in between each of these nodes. Down here is when it was active shoot growth, where there is a lot of space in between the nodes, and then you can see it getting smaller and smaller. So it's time to irrigate this block. We haven't irrigated yet this season, but being a young, sensitive block like this, I want to make sure it's not too stressed. And so we'll also drop a lot of this fruit because we don't want these young, smaller shoots to carry too much fruit in their younger years. But this is a great example of one of those blocks that's sort of on the estate, amazing dirt, great rootstock, great clone, but not quite up to the level of our 2.9 estate or our Aida estate cab. So a perfect candidate for Sienda. And maybe not all of the block makes the blend. It might be a 10 barrel or an 8 barrel blend when it's all said and done. And maybe 6 or 7 of those might make Sienda, and then the rest might get trickled down to another program. So that's a good example of one of the Sienda blocks on our estate. Let's take a walk back up to the winery. So there's a lot going on here during the last 2.5 months. I know a lot of people have been schooling at home and working from home, and I mean, that's challenging. I actually feel super lucky to be able to come to work, and the wine's not going to make itself, and so we need to do quite a bit of work during this time of the year to make sure we get everything blended and bottled carefully and sort of put to bed so we can focus on the next vintage. So we've been bottling a ton of wine the last 2.5 months and blending and racking, and we've got a few more weeks to go of that. The 2018 crop was huge, so the quality was amazing, but the quantity was also pretty amazing. And so with 2018, that means that we have 30% more barrels in the cellar to deal with, to work with, and to blend with. And so it just means more work for the team. But we've enjoyed it. We've no complaints at all. We're lucky to still have our jobs and to still be making great wine during these difficult times. So let's head on in. See the facade of the winery here. I always think it looks like a boat.
Captain's quarters right up there.
If anyone has any questions.
Yeah, if there's any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. We'll answer them.
Let's do it. So here you can see us getting ready for bottling. Usually this is perfectly pristine, but we've had to unload a bunch of trucks of glass, and we're going to fill all these babies within the next week or so. So you can see our 2.9 estate glass, our Aida estate glass. We just bottled Cru and Sienda, the 18s. We've got our Zinfandel glass, our Estate Franc, Estate Blanc. So all these wines will be bottled next week. Come around the corner and check out the bottling line. You're getting the tour, the progressive tour. We saw our French oak fermenters. We have stainless steel fermenters behind me here, some concrete fermenters. All of our wines are bottled. The red elevator there. And so that's a 1,300-gallon stainless steel tank on an elevator, goes up and down. We can feed the bottling line so that we don't have to pump. And here's our bottling line, very small, little compact bottling line. We can feed this line using gravity. We just put a little 10-micron bug catcher, quote unquote. It's really like a cork dust catcher, but we put a little 10-micron bug catcher in the line, and so that way we just feed with gravity instead of pumping, instead of beating up the line, going through any right angles or anything like that. We're able to bottle wines using gravity. So, you can see out here, we're going to run into the cave. We've got our steamer. Lalo's out there getting ready to steam some barrels and sanitize some barrels. So the steamer's going. He's trying to stay out of the heat today because it's going to be 100 degrees. So we decided to steam indoors. So with the door open.
We do have a question about the 2017 vintage.
Yeah, that's what we're going to focus on for sure.
Okay. I just want you to talk a little bit about the 17s. If you want to talk about it later, if you want it now.
Yeah, we're going to get into them for sure. Let's run in and see what the team's doing just before they take a break. But yeah, these are the two wines that we're going to focus on, and we'll finish with this. So the 2017 Cru Cabernet Sauvignon. I'll tell you all about it once we get out of the cave. And then the 2017 Sienda. This is one of our estate wines. So the new one to the portfolio, like I mentioned, 17 Sienda Cabernet Sauvignon. So blend of Aida and Vineyard 29. That price point right in between Cru and the two estate cabs. All right, let's run in. And the work order for today. So this is what the guys are doing.
In case anyone needs some work to do today.
All right. So we have a little under 15,000 square feet of caves. DeMarcus assured me that he will not lose reception when we walk in here. Maybe we won't go too deep in.
No.
So all these barrels on both sides have just been emptied within the last day. And so then they get their little puff of SO2 gas and a glass bung, fancy glass bung. So they're preserved and they're just waiting. They're once filled barrels. They had our estate Cabernet or Cabernet Franc in them for 20 months. And then they were emptied, cleaned, obviously the pressure washed, steamed, ozone, rinsed, and then dried, and then put back in here, like I said, a little puff of SO2 gas, and then they sit here until we need them again. We use our barrels only twice here, so if these had estate Cabernet in them for 20 months, their second fill, they would get Cru Cabernet in them. Cru is 50-50, 50% new and 50% once used barrels. Sienda is like 65-35, new and used. And then the estate wines are more like 80-85% new barrels, so mostly new barrels. So I only use barrels twice here at Vineyard 29. A lot of wineries use them about 5 times. But we're able to use them twice and then sell them to other wineries for a good price. And it works well for us. It keeps our wines very consistent every year with having our spice rack of cooperage and then only once and twice used barrels. All right. Going. So Tim actually is pallet jacking the 2018 Sienda out of the library. See Claudia and Dana in there are bee capping. So we have these fancy little bee caps on the estate wines instead of a capsule. It's little bee caps. And so they're in there bee capping the last of the Siendas, and actually they're getting picked up. We have 3 trucks coming this morning, all by 10 a.m. To get all the wine picked up and sent down to our casement storage warehouse. So that's what we're doing here. Sienda is in the bottle, Cru is in the bottle, and we have some estate wines to finish up, like I said, next week. All right. So let's head on in and see what Victor's doing. You see our white portfolio here. It's not too big. We've got 1,000 barrels in this cave. These are all the white ones, so less than 100. We don't make a lot of white wine here at Vineyard 29. We have a couple of Sauvignon Blancs that we make, one from the estate and one from the Cru level, but mostly reds. See, this is the 2019 Cru base over here. And down here, we have some more 2019 wines. And our Zinfandel, our estate Zinfandel from the Aida property. Vic's using a little pressurized, we call it a bulldog, but it's a pressurized racking wand. And he's basically using inert gas, using nitrogen, to suck all the wine out of the barrel. And then he's got his little light, he's able to watch and see right before he sucks air, he pulls it out of the barrel. All right, let's get out into the light. I want you guys to see what everybody's doing here. This is Kevin. How you doing?
There.
All right, so let's talk about the wines. So Cru is it's a blend. It's Cabernet Sauvignon. It's about 84% Cab, but it's a blend of all Bordeaux varieties. So we're fortunate enough to get some great fruit from, you know, it's St. Helena based. We've got mostly St. Helena vineyards, mostly neighboring vineyards. But we're fortunate enough to get some great fruit from Malbec from up on Mount Peter. We get some great Cab from up on Mount St. Helena. Amazing Oakville Cab, 2 different ranges in Oakville. A little bit of Coonsville Cab, just about 5 tons from a beautiful vineyard down in Coonsville. So they bring different elements, different components to the blend, and that's what makes it so special. You know, and the fact that the Cru is made in the same building with the same team, using the same equipment. We've got all the fancy optical sorting and shaker table, and you know, great crush pad equipment, and we've got the gravity flow winemaking and all the fancy tanks. So we've got everything, you know, to make amazing estate level Cabernet. But Cru is just sort of fortunate enough to be able to be made in the same building by the same team. So I think it's one of the best bang for your buck cabs in the valley. Put it up against anything. And then, like I said, with Sienda, we decided to do this with the 2016 vintage, and that was our first year. And this is the 17 that we have here. And so Sienda is a chance to work with those vineyards that are from the estate but don't necessarily make it into our 2.9 estate or our Aida estate cab. So this particular Sienda bottling, the 17, is mostly cab. It's about 88% cab. It's a tiny bit of Petit Verdot from Aida, and a little bit of Cabernet Franc from here, just outside the winery here at the 2.9 estate. So yeah, the 17 vintage, it was a warm one, definitely a warmer vintage. Everything started off early. We had amazing rainfall the winter of 16 and 17, so it just did not stop raining, and so all the grasses were longer than usual. The fire danger was high, and then we had these dry winds throughout the summer. So everything sort of sped up and ripened very quickly. We were able to harvest most of our fruit before the October 8th wildfires, which I'm sure you all know about. So we have about 10% of our fruit still hanging on the vine that didn't quite make any of our blends, but the 90% of the fruit that we already had here in tank did just fine, did great. It was an early harvest. We wrapped everything up nice and early that year. Some harvests go all the way up to November, and this one lasted until early October, so it's definitely an early, warmer year. The wines are great. They've got a lot of structure, a lot of power. They're more black fruit driven than red in this particular vintage. I compare them to the 2010 vintage. I always try to compare vintages. I've been here a long time. And like the 18s, I compare it to the 05s, both bountiful and beautiful in concentration and quantity. But the 17 I compare a lot to the 10, just in the fact that they've got this sort of black fruit profile, sort of a scorched earth type of descriptor to them. A lot of structure, a lot of power, a lot of concentration, maybe a little bit tightly wound, and then when they open up, they're just gorgeous. And they're going to age very well, like 17s. So I'm super excited about those. I mentioned in the cave, but about 50% new, 50% once used, all French oak, all tight grain, thin stave French oak, 22 millimeter barrels. And this is about 65% new and 35% once used on Sienda. Cru ages 18 months in barrel, Sienda ages 20 months in barrel. And yeah, so we make usually around 5,000 cases of the Cru. 17 was a shorter year because some of those vineyards didn't make the cut. Those post-fire vineyards didn't make the cut. And so we bottled 4,600 cases in 17. And then Sienda, we just did a few hundred cases of that, smaller bottling for us. You see the different packages. The Cru portfolio has the red. Anything from our estate has the gold, and it's a bit of a taller bottle with different package. But you can tell it's Vineyard 29, and on the back everything says Vineyard 29. Yeah. So, any questions or anything for us?
I don't have any questions. You covered the 2017. Does anyone have any questions for Keith before we end here?
I'm trying to keep it to my time limit as well. Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your support of Vineyard 29. And yeah, we hope you can get out here to visit us when it's safe. We wish you all the best, and again, be well, be safe, and stay healthy, and keep drinking great wine. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.